So we all know the myths of immortality, right? Myths of finding fantastical elixirs capable of granting a person eternal youth and immortality. Myths like that of the Holy Grail or even that of the Philosopher's Stone. But what if these weren't just myths? What if this elixir of immortality could actually exist? Well, this is the premise that sets up the stage for the hit manga series Hell's Paradise, which is a manga about a group of convicts sent to a fantastical island to try to find an elixir of immortality for the Emperor so that they can each receive a pardon. And so, in this quest for the potion of immortality, the manga explores the concepts of eternal life and leads into the question of what is immortality, and specifically, how can we attain it? And so to find some answers, I decided to dive deep into the manga. And so today, I will be looking at the different philosophies of achieving immortality as presented through the manga Hell's Paradise. But before we begin, I do want to say that there will be some spoilers coming up ahead. We will be diving deep into the manga, so there will naturally be some minor or even some major spoilers ahead. And so yeah, I just wanted to warn you guys in advance. Okay, so now that that's out of the way, let's begin the video by describing the first and most apparent / obvious variant of immortality, and that is physical immortality, or biological immortality as some describe it. And so in this form of immortality, you live forever by literally, living forever. And so in the manga, this form of immortality is represented by the elixir as well as the search for this elixir. And so through gaining this elixir, one would presumably gain this fantastical ability to physically live forever, presumably in a youthful state, right? Well, not exactly. You see, the manga presents a twist to this immortality formula through the presence of the Hoko, which is a village that has consumed this potion to gain immortality. And so while the Hoko are immortal, they went through a process that the manga describes as arborification, becoming what is effectively, tree people. And so these tree people are this twisted form of biological immortality. And so whilst they do gain this power to live forever, they also lose all aspects of their own sentience and sense of self. And in this, the author presents this miserable form of eternal life that is directly opposed to the Tensen, which is this other subset of immortals, that however represent eternal youth. And thus, even though the Hoko live forever, they aren't really aware of the fact that they are living, and so the question is, are they really even living forever? And so both of these types of immortality that appear in Hell's Paradise also appear in myths and stories outside of Hell's Paradise. And so in terms of eternal youth, we can see these stories present in stories like the Fountain of Youth, or even stories like that of the Philosopher's Stone. Likewise, we also see stories of immortality without eternal youth. And this is like the story of Titanus, who asked for immortality but forgot to ask for agelessness. And so, as we can see through these stories present, Hell's Paradise also presents this idea of attaining immortality through a physical means for the duality of eternal youth as represented by the Tensen, as well as the just immortality without eternal youth as represented by the arborified Hoko. The next conceptualization of immortality is that of the character of Tamiya Gantetsusai. For him, his initial view of immortality didn't relate to physically living forever. Rather, for him, he believes that through performing these extraordinary feats, people will remember his name for generations to come, and that to him is this truer form of immortality surpassing that of even gaining some elixir of life. In this example, he would gain immortality through having his name passed down and recorded in history, and thus, for him, he doesn't want to live forever. Instead, he wants his name to live forever. And so, in this idea of immortality, the idea of, being immortal lies in the fact that you only die when your name is never uttered again, when it is forgotten. And this idea is similar to that of the ancient Egyptian philosophy, specifically that of the conception of the soul known as the Ren. And this aspect of the soul is a person's name, and ancient Egyptians believed that this aspect of the soul would live for as long as the name was spoken, thus obtaining immortality for as long as a name is remembered. And for them, the name represents a person's identity, their experiences in their entire life's worth of memories. As such, they believe that inscribing one's name as much as possible could help preserve this aspect of the soul, or alternatively, hacking away written names could help destroy it. And so like the ancient Egyptian belief in the Ren, Tamiya Gentetsusai believes that the best way to ensure immortality is to ensure your name survives in history for as long as possible. So the next form of immortality is a little bit of a stretch, but the idea is that you aren't immortal, but rather your position is. And so basically what I mean by this is I'm trying to say that this is what Gabimaru is. And so you see in the manga, it basically describes that Gabimaru isn't this person, but rather it's a title. And so even when one person with the title Gabimaru dies, another person can take his or her place, making it so that Gabimaru never dies and is like an immortal in some sense. And so in a way, this is a mortality through succession or replacement. And so in terms of real world examples, the idea of immortality is reminiscent to the idea of the ancient Persian immortals, which was a name given by Herodotus to an elite heavy infantry unit of 10,000 soldiers. And so the idea behind this name stemmed from the custom that for every soldier killed, seriously wounded, or sick, a new soldier would immediately replace them, thus ultimately maintaining the corps as this cohesive unit with a seemingly never-ending, constant strength. And you can already probably see the similarities to that of Gabimaru, as for both, if they die or are seriously injured or out of commission for whatever reason, another person will take their place. And thus, Hell's Paradise creates this other idea of immortality achieved symbolically of sorts, where a symbol or position is immortal rather than a singular human entity. And so the last method of obtaining immortality that we'll be discussing is the idea of obtaining immortality through your descendants and through family. And so this idea of immortality is that while you yourself aren't immortal, you are instead kept alive through your descendants. And so in this manga, two characters seemingly represent this philosophy, being that of Nurugai and of the Yamada Aisaman Shugen. And so for Nurugai, she's this last survivor of her tribes, and as such, she is explicitly told to live to keep the mountain tribe people alive, and that through her, the mountain people tribes' legacies are kept immortal through the blood that runs through her. And for Yamada Aisaman Shugen, he believes that he lives and dies for the duty he has to his clan, and he believes that as long as the clan survives, and as long as the duty and the purpose of the clan survives, then no matter what, the will of the clan's members and people will remain undying or, well, immortal. And so thus, both of these characters are exposed to this similar belief as related to the idea of immortality, that you can survive through your descendants and that you can survive through your lineage of sorts. And so this idea of immortality is reminiscent of the concept of collective immortality, which refers to the fact that although each of us individually is going to die, the species as a whole will survive. And so thus, though we won't achieve our immortality ourselves, we achieve immortality for our descendants and our blood surviving. And so for Nurugai, that would mean to expand the clan and to continue to have, the blood of the mountain people run through the descendants, and for Shugen, it would mean to keep on carrying out the clan's duty. So yeah, what can we conclude from all of this? Well, throughout its unique narrative, Hell's Paradise vividly explores these different versions of immortality. And through this exploration of immortality and what it means to try to escape death, Hell's Paradise ultimately dives into an exploration of what it means to live life. And with so many valid conceptions of immortality as presented throughout the manga, the author seemingly hits at the idea that there are many different ways to lead a life that is, well, fulfilling and meaningful. And so the manga also presents this idea that the innate desire to obtain immortality is built upon this desire to feel as if the world is permanently affected or even influenced by your life. Be it through fame, succession, family, or even you still living there, the manga highlights that we all have this desire to feel impactful on the world that we live in. And this seemingly leads into another question, and that question seems to wonder, do you even need to live forever to have a fulfilling life? Rather, wouldn't it just be better to live a normal life that you yourself find your own meaning in? But this is a question for another time, and possibly another video. Until then, Dwarlock signing off.